June 3, 2024, 10:42 a.m. Peachtree Mutual Midtown. Lemon polish, a hum of printers, and the kind of privacy you only get when a velvet rope pretends to be a wall. I wore my blue church dress because money behaves better when I look like myself. Harold stood a half step ahead, like always, already talking to the clerk whose nameplate said, Maya Rivers. "We're sorting out an auto draft," he said, breath moving faster than the fax. It bounced by mistake. Our May 28th draft to Magnolia Oaks Assisted Living, $2,085, I added, steady. Maya verified IDs, mine for the joint checking, his for his profile. Her voice was professional, low, the kind bankers use when they mean no trouble. She clicked, paused, then turned slightly toward Harold. "I do see an additional savings linked to your profile," she said softer. "To confirm spelling on the beneficiary before I proceed. Carla Addison, correct?" She meant it for him. I was standing 12 inches to his left. Harold's jaw ticked. "We're discussing checking," he said. Maya blinked, apologized with her eyes, and moved on like nothing had happened. The lobby didn't freeze. Nobody turned to stare. The breach was small, but it cracked like a knuckle. "Our joint debit keeps declining," I said. "I'll re-enable the card," Maya said, typing. "There was a fraud flag. I've cleared it. You'll also want to review recent activity when you get home." She slid a neutral dispute brochure across the counter, the kind that covers everything and admits nothing. Outside, the Atlanta heat made honesty curl. Harold walked fast toward the car. "Don't start," he said, unlocking the Camry. "That savings is for business reserves." "Reserves that spell CARLA?" I asked quietly. He gripped the wheel. "Drop it." At home, I set the brochure by the kettle and breathed my way through anger, the way nurses count breaths. On the kitchen island lay the returned draft notice for Mama's facility. In the margin, Harold had written, "We'll catch up next month. H." I opened the cabinet above the fridge to reach for tea tins, and a small metal clink replied. Something slid forward and dropped onto the counter. A shiny key with tape on the head, block letters B3117. I turned it over. The ring had a miniature tag. Peachtree Station. I don't believe in omens, but I do believe in labels. That afternoon, I cleaned the back bedroom the way my mother taught me, by touching every paper. The black accordion folder labeled Bonds and Bequests still held my Series 1 bonds list, the Wachovia photocopy of Aunt Dolores's $20,000 check to me, and a note from 2019 in my handwriting, "Treasury Direct, next month." Next month never came. A duplicate deposit receipt peeked out. I didn't remember. 05/06/2019, $20,000, account ending 1449, and the memo line in Harold's careful block letters, "Rainy day, DM. Whose rain?" I opened our old family email on the kitchen iPad. Harold never changed the password, and searched Peachtree Mutual Pod. A calendar entry from Nov 14th, 2023 blinked up. POD appointment. MGR L. Ortiz, 12:30 p.m. Right under it, a scanned notary receipt attached to the event, Elias Mobile Notary, $15, and a contact card labeled Carla A. I printed the page to a PDF and mailed it to myself because at 62 I don't memorize. I back up. I poured tea and wrote 3 lines on a sticky note. Magnolia Oaks, new payment plan by June 28th. Peachtree Station, Box B3117. Peachtree. Mutual, request images, RC15. When a story starts bending, paper is the splint. I picked up the key and felt it warm in my palm like a small truth deciding to live. I called Magnolia Oaks and said I would update them within 2 weeks, and when I hung up, I understood I had just given myself a deadline with a mirror for a witness. Who exactly is Carla Addison? And why is my husband so sure my name doesn't belong next to hers? I learned to keep my mouth closed when I'm counting. That night, Harold stacked Brooks Climate and Repair invoices on the dining table like stage props. Tires, diesel, a vendor slow to pay. "It's a tight quarter," he said, tapping an unpaid $1,740 service ticket. "We're broke until a couple checks land." "Then why is there a POD with another woman's name?" I asked. My hands were busy rinsing collards. Busy hands lower the temperature. It's succession planning, he said. Business risk management. You're taking it personally. I'm taking it mathematically, I said. 45,000 is not a rainy cloud. It's a roof. He stood, kissed my forehead like punctuation, and stepped onto the porch to take a call. The glass slider doesn't seat right. He's promised to fix it for 3 summers. So sound leaks like gossip. I can't talk long, he murmured. Pause. No, it's still scheduled for end of month. I'll confirm with Ortiz. No, she doesn't know what it is. Another pause. I said I'd transfer, didn't I? He came back in wearing a neutral face and the wrong calm. You done? He asked. Not nearly, I said, drying my hands. After dinner, I used the kitchen iPad again. Our old family Apple ID still syncs calendar pings to check May 2024. An entry on May 29th, 10:41 p.m. showed DocuSign. Documents completed from a device named HB Office iPad. I opened the completion certificate. It listed IP, timestamp, document name, title lien addendum, Metro Peach Credit Union, and signers. My name appeared in curly script I never use. Forgery has a smell. It smells like lemon oil and a person believing you won't check. I emailed the certificate to myself and made a list for the morning. Credit reports, freeze plus dispute if needed. Metro Peach CU, request audit trail. Peachtree Station, check B317. Peachtree, mutual, file RC15 for images, 2019 deposit, 2024 bond redemptions. At 8:57 p.m., Tasha texted from the next neighborhood over, Dad says you're making drama. Is everything okay? I typed and erased 3 replies before sending the one I could live with. I'm organizing facts. When Harold showered, I opened the cabinet above the fridge where the key had dropped and felt around for what else gravity might owe me. Taped to the wood was a flat envelope, a P.O. Box rental slip for Peachtree Station, Box B317, paid through December 2024, and a notary receipt from Nov 14, 2023, the same date on the calendar. No secrets shout, the honest ones whisper. I took photos of everything and tucked the originals behind Psalm 37 in my Bible, the page about evildoers fading like grass. Then I sat at the table with a calculator and my grandmother's kind of patience. We are not broke. We're being renamed, and I intend to keep mine. On June 4th, I brewed chicory coffee and spread the past across my bed like laundry that needed sorting. The black accordion folder still had my Series 1 bonds list, face values $1,000 each from 2005-2008, and a photocopy of Aunt Dolores's $20,000 check to me dated 04/17/2019. In the pocket behind it, a duplicate deposit receipt from 05/06/2019 stared up like a confession. $20,000 into account ending 1449. Memo in Harold's careful print. Rainy day, DM. Rainy days don't write initials. I wrote down my bond serials, I-2006-114M, I-2007-219K, I-2008-077L, and slid them into my wallet. Then I called Peachtree Mutual and asked for item research. The woman said evenly, you can submit Form RC15 to request check images or deposit slips tied to specific transaction dates, amounts. Fee is $5 per item, standard 10-20 business days. I printed the form, filled it slow and neat. 5/06/2019, $20,000. 3/15/2024, bond redemptions. 4/02/2024, cashier's check to CMA, amount unknown. I attached copies of the duplicate receipt, my ID, and our marriage certificate, because paper likes company. At noon, I drove to Peachtree Mutual Midtown. Maya recognized me, but kept her voice in the safe range. You can leave the RC15 with me, she said, sliding over a receipt with a tracking number and a date. Research replies by mail or secure email. No winks, no whispers, just policy, which is exactly what I needed. From the parking lot, I called Metro Peach Credit Union. I'm disputing a title lien addendum I did not sign, I told Camille in fraud. She opened a case, MP 44718F, and emailed me a fraud affidavit, plus a link to request the DocuSign audit trail. Average review time is 15 to 30 days, she said. We'll place a precautionary hold on the lien. Your vehicle remains titled to you pending outcome. I hung up and felt my spine take back an inch. Back home, I opened our old family Apple ID long enough to remove Harold's office iPad from the account and enabled two-factor on my phone. Then, I pulled annualcreditreport.com and froze Experian, Equifax, TransUnion in one careful sitting. My grandmother didn't leave me much money, but she left me habits. Write the confirmation numbers on paper you keep where you can find it when you're tired. At 4:15 p.m., I drafted a short letter to Magnolia Oaks. Please note that I'm arranging funds for June 28th. I can bring $1,000 this week and the remainder by the deadline. I enclosed a cashier's check for $1,000 from my new account and a copy of their invoice. The mailman took it from my hand like a baton in a race I still intended to win. Evening brought a sky the color of hard peaches. Harold ate standing up and said words that sounded like invoices. I let him talk. After he went to bed, I sat with my binder and built a timeline down the left margin. 2019, deposit of Aunt Dee's check. 2023, pod appointment. May 2024, DocuSign completion. June 3rd, clerk's soft mistake. On the right, I listed documents requested and expected dates. There's power in a calendar that admits weekends. When I closed the planner, the shared iPad pinged in the quiet and a square popped up on the lock screen from Google Calendar. Harold never turned off previews. Walkthrough, Unit 3C, Ponce City Market, June 30, 3:10 p.m. I am not racing him to a secret. I am building a record he can't outrun. June 6th, 9:40 a.m. Peachtree Station Post Office on Piedmont. Fluorescence hummed. The bird stamp lady argued kindly about denominations. I had the rental receipt I'd found. P.O. Box B317, paid through December 2024, and the key warming my palm. The wall of boxes glittered like 100 small decisions. I stood in front of B317 and did the most grown thing I've done in years. I did not put the key in. Federal crimes don't care that you're 62 and right. I walked to the retail counter instead. Hi, I said to the clerk. I need to know how to add an authorized user to a P.O. box. I have the receipt, but the renter isn't here. She smiled the smile they teach. We'd need the primary renter present with Form 1093 to add you, ma'am. Fair, I said. Thank you. On the way out, I glanced back at the brass door marked B317 and told it I had patience and pens. I drove to Ponce City Market because sometimes a street answers a question, a screen won't. The leasing office smelled like coffee and new paint. I asked for a one-bedroom brochure like any woman who's tired of her kitchen table. The agent, a young man with a tie that understood rent, handed me a rate sheet and smiled at my age like it was wisdom. While he checked availability, a clerk called across the room, "Did Ms. Addison confirm deposit timing for 3C?" The agent answered, "Pending by June 28th. File noted." No one looked at me. I looked at the floor until my face remembered its own business. Outside, I sat in the car and circled June 28th in my planner until the ink darkened the page. 2 deposits, 1 date. I wrote in the margin, "Only one of these is mine." At home, I opened the door of Harold's office, not to sneak, but to tidy. Paper tells you who a person thinks they are when no one is watching. In the second drawer, under HVAC manuals, a Peachtree Mutual brochure on payable on death beneficiaries wore 2 highlight stripes. The line read, "POD assets pass to the named beneficiary at the account owner's death and are not part of the probate estate." Someone had underlined owner's death twice. It didn't say anything about marriage. Brochures never do. I left the brochure where I found it and drafted a manager review request to Luis Ortiz that was more math than emotion. Dates, amounts, account ending 1449, and a copy of Aunt Dolores's check with my endorsement. I didn't accuse. I asked for a meeting to discuss source of funds and beneficiary designation. Melissa, the clinic coordinator at AVLF, emailed back the same afternoon. "We can place you in our August clinic. In the meantime, keep it paper only and request a manager meeting in writing." I printed her email and put it under a tab titled Counsel. That night, Harold said he'd be At the shop late and took the Forerunner even though the Camry had gas. I watched the taillights and felt my mouth go dry, then poured water and found Psalm 37 with my thumb. I am not a detective. I am a woman with a file system and a deadline. When I set my phone on the nightstand, the shared calendar chimed again, and 3 words lit the room like a small, cruel marquee. Add Carla. Pod. June 7th started with a list on the back of a grocery envelope, and the quiet stubbornness that comes when you've run out of ways to be surprised. I called Magnolia Oaks at 8:12 a.m. "This is Lorraine Brooks," I said. "You'll receive $1,000 by mail this week, the remainder by June 28th. The admissions director, Ms. Bellinger, didn't ask why I was paying in pieces." "Noted," she said. "Thank you for communicating." At 9:05, I set up bill pay from my new account at Atlanta Community Bank for the facility invoice and my own utilities. It felt like moving delicate china from a shelf I no longer trusted. Then I opened my binder and made the first of many cover sheets, white paper that tells you what you're about to read before the grief of reading it. Source of funds, Aunt Dolores, plus. Series 1 bonds. At 10:30, Camille from Metro Peach CU called. "Ms. Brooks, your fraud affidavit is logged, JAVTRA MP 44718F. We've requested a DocuSign audit trail. Typical turnaround is 10-15 business days. Meanwhile, we've placed a precautionary hold on the lien. Your title remains unaffected unless the document is validated." "What will the trail show?" I asked. "IP, timestamps, device, signer authentication. Enough to prove whether the signature was you or a device linked to Mr. Brooks's office," she said. Her voice was kind without leaning. "You did the right thing early. Early is the cheapest way to be brave," I said, and wrote her name on my cover sheet. Before lunch, I drove to Peachtree Mutual to hand-deliver the RC-15 I'd already filed, this time adding a second request. All available images for any cashier's checks issued from account ending 1449 between 03/1 2024 or 4/30 2024. Maya took the forms and gave me a stamped copy. "Research will email links," she said. "No conspiracies, no secrets, just procedure. Sometimes you win by learning how the doors actually open." At home, I called my sister Renee. "I've got a 6-week plan," I said, and told her the parts that were mine to tell. "We're going to braid Mama's deposit out of this tangle." "Say the numbers," she said. $12,500 by June 28th. I've covered 1. I'll cover 11.5. "We'll cover," she said. "I've got $500 I can park with you next Friday." By afternoon, the house smelled like lemon oil and printed paper. I found a 2023 1099 INT in our tax folder. Peachtree Mutual, payer. Harold B. Brooks, recipient. Account ending 1449. $612.84 interest. No cliffhangers, just math. I copied it, put it behind source of funds, and wrote a note. Account existed before the bounced draft to Magnolia Oaks. At 6:15, Tasha appeared at my door with a bag of oranges and a face that didn't know where to land. "Dad says the business is bleeding," she said. "Maybe it is," I answered. "But the hemorrhage isn't why Mama's draft bounced." I showed her the 1099 INT and the duplicate deposit slip from 2019. She looked exactly like Harold when numbers argue with their mouths shut. She didn't defend him. She didn't hug me. She stood with me at the island and peeled an orange like we were both 16 and deciding whether to go to prom. When she left, I balanced my checkbook the way my grandmother taught me, pencil first, pen second, and scheduled a manager meeting with Luis Ortiz for July 9th, 10 hours a.m. I attached my cover sheets, kept my tone professional, and hit send. The shared kitchen iPad chimed at 9:02 p.m. with a calendar alert Harold never meant for me to see. Confirm POD with Ortiz, beneficiary present, July 9th. Sunday, June 9th, I wore white to Greater New Hope because it steadies me and confuses people who think they know my weather. Pastor James preached from Proverbs 11:1, dishonest scales. And I didn't take it personally. I took it like an instruction manual. Tasha sat 2 pews up with Andre, knuckles white around the program. After the benediction, she let me hug her. which is better than agreement and heavier than silence. In the fellowship hall, Sister Margot asked if I was managing. I said I was filing, which is the truest answer I had. The potato salad was too sweet, the air too loud, the smiles mostly real. I left with a paper plate I didn't eat and a vow to pick my words like locks. At 4 p.m., I texted Harold, kitchen table Wednesday 7 p.m. to discuss. Magnolia Oaks, RC 15, Metro Peach case, Nomner, bills. Please bring safe code, keys, statement for act ending 1449. He replied, fine. One word is a door that won't close. Monday bled into Wednesday the way paper stacks do. Magnolia Oaks emailed, confirming my $1,000 arrived and noting the balance due by June 28th. AVLF wrote back with a slot in the August clinic, a list of intake documents, and a sentence I underlined. Do not confront privately without a witness if you anticipate escalation. I invited Renee to Wednesday's table because sometimes a witness is just a sister with a steady pen. At 6:57 p.m., Wednesday, Harold came in smelling like the shop and a decision. He sat. Renee opened a spiral and wrote the date. I need 3 things, I began. The safe code, the keys that relate to joint property, and a printed statement for account. 1449 covering Jan May. Why? He asked, which is not a real question. Because I'm paying $12,500 for my mother's care, while a POD with another woman's name earns interest at our address. That account is business reserve, he said, softer than his anger. The pod is administrative. I'll move $20,500 this week toward Magnolia, the rest by the 28th. He looked at Renee like she was a jury he could sway. Renee didn't blink. We'll take receipts, she said. He pulled out a folded paper and slid it across the table. A handwritten IOU, not a bank statement. You'll have it, he said. I need ledger proof, I said. Transfers from 1449 to joint, not promises. He stiffened. I'm not handing you my business. I'm not asking for your business, I said. I'm asking for my mother's bed. He stood up, sat down, and then did the thing men do when they run out of story. He got loud. Renee kept writing the way you hold a kite in wind. When he quieted, I repeated my list and slid over copies of the RC-15, the 1099 INT, and Camille's case email. We meet Ortiz on July 9th, I said. Bring Carla if you must. I'm bringing paper. He snatched the copies, stuffed them in his bag, and left without taking his plate. The door stuck on its track like always. He didn't fix it on the way out. At 9:11 p.m., my phone buzzed with a bank alert I'd set that afternoon. Outgoing transfer, $1,000 from account, 1449 to joint checking, 9:09 p.m. The $1,000 transfer from 1449 to our joint on June 12th, 9:09 p.m. was a proof of concept, not a solution. I deposited it toward the $12,500 I owed Magnolia Oaks and kept my receipts like prayer cards. The next morning I did something I should have done sooner. I wrote a preservation letter, 2 pages, calm and dated, asking Harold Brooks to maintain all financial records, statements, emails, text messages, and device data related to account 1449, Metro Peach CU, and any POD beneficiary changes since 2019. I emailed it to him, printed it, and sent it certified mail to the shop so a green card could tell the truth later. That afternoon, I rented my own P.O. box at Grant Park Station. Not the one with his key, not the one with secrets. Mine. Box 424. I wrote it at the top of every form going forward because mail is the oldest evidence there is. On June 15th, Camille from Metro Peach confirmed my fraud affidavit was in queue. We've requested the DocuSign audit trail from the vendor, she said. Expect 10-15 business days. I added those days to my calendar like stepping stones. When we hung up, I put 3 copies of everything into a fireproof pouch labeled Rain, Originals, and tucked it behind the coats. If you've ever had to rebuild a life, you know where your papers sleep. On June 17th, I asked Harold for the safe code again. We stood like weather systems at the kitchen island. Not until you stop treating me like a criminal, he said. I'm treating you like an adult with a ledger, I said. Safe code, please. He changed the subject. I wrote, refused safe code, 6:17, 7:14 p.m. in my notebook, because someday I might need to remember the minute. On June 18th, Luis Ortiz replied to my manager meeting request. Confirmed for July 9th, 10 a.m. Parties, account owner, spouse, beneficiary. Bring ID. Will have item research present if images have returned. The sentence had more policy than comfort, but it was a line on a map, and I taped it inside my binder. On June 20th, right after lunch, Camille called again. Preliminary DocuSign data is back, she said. The signature event for May 29th, 10:41 p.m. originated from a device labeled HB Office iPad. Authentication was via email link to an address ending arbrooksclimate.com. IP resolves to the shop's Comcast block. There's no secondary factor tied to your phone number. We'll finish the audit, but I wanted you to know the indicators do not match you. Thank you, I said, and wrote down every noun she gave me. After we hung up, I printed the interim email she sent and slid it behind tab, DocuSign. Forgery doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just fails to say your name the way your phone would. That night, Harold offered $2,000 by Monday. I answered with a sentence I'd practiced. Transfers, not promises. Documentation, not IOUs. He rolled his eyes and ate standing up, and I let the ceiling fan keep the peace. Later, when the house went quiet, I reread Psalm 37 and then wrote my own. I won't escalate. I will document. I won't guess. I will request. I won't break locks. I will knock with forms. I put the notebook away and slept the way you sleep when your spine has voted. At 9:06 a.m. the next day, my phone buzzed with a certified mail delivery notification from the post office. Signed, H. Brooks, 6:21, 8:19 a.m. If he wants to pretend there's no fire, he can do it while holding the letter that names the smoke. The ally arrived on June 24th and wore a notary seal. I'd emailed Elias Grant, the mobile notary whose receipt sat attached to that November calendar entry, asking for process, not secrets. He replied with an invitation to stop by his storefront on Joseph E. Lowry Belvedere. I can't give you anyone else's documents, he wrote, but I can explain what I keep and what a declaration can say. His shop smelled like toner and peppermint oil. He slid a laminated copy of Georgia Notary Guidelines across the counter and tapped the relevant line. I keep a journal, date, names, type of document, ID type, fee. I don't keep content. If you're disputing a document, I can sign a declaration of non-appearance stating I did not witness your signature on that date. If counsel or a bank needs confirmation that I did witness other parties on Nov 14, 2023, they can request it. I'll respond to them. Would you be willing to provide that declaration for May 29, 2024? I asked. Bring ID and the document title, he said. I'll prepare it. I handed over my license. He typed. The printer hummed. The declaration read in clean sentences that on 05/29 to 2024, he notarized only Harold B. Brooks for a title lien addendum and did not witness me. He stamped and signed, then gave me the original. No quotes, no opinions, he said. Just what I saw. That's all I need, I said, and put it behind tab, notary. On my way out, he added, if anyone pressures you off the record, remind them, good banks love process. Be patient with the good ones. Be documented with the others. He wasn't taking sides. He was teaching weather. At home, I forwarded the declaration to Camille at Metro Peach with a thank you and filed a copy with my AVLF intake packet. Sophia replied from the clinic, perfect. Keep stacking independent documents. July 9th is your bank meeting. August your clinic. You're on track. That afternoon, I sent Luis Ortiz a short update. No drama, just facts. Notary declaration attached. RC-15 pending. Audit trail pending. He answered with a single line. Noted. Research will attend if images are ready. I thought about Maya and her sunflower and resisted the urge to bring baked goods. Kindness is not a strategy, but sometimes it's a lubricant for truth. June 26th came like a station stop. I walked into Magnolia Oaks with a cashier's check for $11,500, the balance after my earlier $1,000, and a copy of Harold's $2,000 transfer that finally landed on June 24th. Ms. Bellinger stamped my receipt, smiled the professional smile that doesn't ask questions, and pointed me toward Evelyn's window, where the magnolia was finally blooming. I put the receipt on her corkboard under a thumbtack shaped like a star. On June 27th, a secure email from Peachtree Mutual Item Research landed in my new box 424 portal. Subject line, RC15 images available, ref 2024-061103. The message listed links, 05-06-2019, $20,000 deposit, front, back, 03-15-2024, bond redemption receipts, 04-2-2024 cashier's check. Image, stub. I closed the laptop, whispered a thank you to nobody in particular, and set a fresh ream of paper in the printer because the next sound I wanted to hear was evidence coming out warm and undeniable. The RC15 links from Peachtree Mutual Item Research landed on June 27th, a tidy list in my box 424 portal. 05-06-2019 $20,000 deposit, front back, 03-15-2024 bond redemption receipts, 04-02-2024 cashier's check image, arc stub. I brewed chicory coffee, fed the printer, and watched the first page slide out like a truth, deciding to stand up straight. Page 1. Wachovia, $20,000. Pay to the order of Lorraine Brooks. My endorsement, L. Brooks. The loop in the L, just the way my third-grade teacher taught me. Flipside image, bank stamp. For deposit only. Peachtree Mutual. Act. 4049. Under it, in Harold's block letters, H.B. Brooks. It wasn't a story anymore. It was a photograph of a choice. Next, the bond redemptions. 3 receipts dated 03-15-2024. Each listing the serials I keep in my wallet. I-2006 114M, I-2007 219K, I-2008 077L. Proceeds, $4,000 total. Payee, Brooks. Deposit account, 1449. I placed the page under a clear sleeve labeled Exhibit B, Bonds, and wrote the word Origin in the margin because a person should be able to point to where things begin. Then came the image with someone else's name. 0402-2024, cashier's check, payee, C.M. Addison, 3,500 gears. Remitter, account, 1449. The memo line didn't shout, it was small and sufficient. Relocation, 3C. I pressed my palm flat on the desk until my pulse remembered its manners. I called Renee and read the captions aloud, the way you read a recipe to someone who already knows how to cook. It's not just suspicion, I said. It's paper. Then stop arguing feelings, she said, and let the paper talk. I made cover sheets and tabs the way a nurse lays out instruments. Exhibit A, Aunt Dolores. Exhibit B, Bonds. Exhibit C, Cashier's check, Addison. Timeline, requests, responses. I slid in the 1099 INT in 2023 for $14.49, added copies of my RC15 request and the bank's email confirmation, and printed Luis Ortiz's meeting notice for July 9th, 10 a.m. At 2:10 p.m., I forwarded the Exhibit AC PDFs to Luis with a measured note. For your awareness ahead of July 9th, images confirming source of funds and 1 cashier's check to C.M. Addison. I will bring originals. He replied in 15 minutes. Received. Research will attend. Will limit discussion to policy and documentation. It was the right kind of dry. I also sent Exhibit B to Camille at Metro Peach CU with a thank you for the lien hold and a note that my DocuSign audit trail request was still pending. She confirmed the vendor had until July 3rd to complete the packet. The calendar in my head laid out the days like tiles. That night, Magnolia Oaks posted the $11,500 payment to Mama's ledger. Ms. Bellinger emailed a receipt I printed on good paper and pinned to my own corkboard because some victories deserve to be seen twice. On June 29th, I took my binder to the dining table and rehearsed how I'd speak it. I practiced saying source of funds without apology and beneficiary designation without shaking. I promised myself I would not interrupt if Harold tried to sell weather as a forecast. I would let Maya and item research be the room's gravity. When I slid the cashier's check image into its sleeve, I noticed a small stamp I'd missed on the first pass, issued Midtown branch, teller, number 311, the same suffix on Maya's badge. I wasn't angry. I was oriented. On July 1st, The Ponce City Market calendar ping popped up on the shared iPad like a blue dare. Walk through, Unit 3C, June 30, 3 p.m., completed. The next event in that calendar is mine. July 2nd began with a voicemail from Camille. Audit trail is ready. Secure link sent. I opened the Metro Peach portal and downloaded a certificate thick with timestamps. 10:41 p.m., 05/29/2024, signer Lorraine Brooks authenticated by email link to hbbrooksclimate.com, device HB Office iPad, IP in the shop's Comcast block, no SMS or knowledge-based prompt to my number. There's a special kind of quiet that follows proof. I printed 2 copies, initialed the bottom right corner, and slid them behind tab, DocuSign. At 11:30 a.m., Sophia from AVLF called for a brief advice slot. I can't send an attorney on July 9th, she said, but I can prep you. She walked me through 4 points. 1. Stick to documents. 2. Ask for a risk manager authorization flag on 1449 during compliance review. 3. Request a written case number from the bank's back office and expected time frame. 4. Do not sign anything you didn't bring. Banks move by policy, she said. Be the policy they have to answer. I wrote her points on a single index card and taped it inside my binder. At 2:05 p.m., I emailed Luis to confirm logistics. He replied, Conference Room B. Attendees, you, Mr. Brooks, Ms. Addison. Item research and compliance dial-in. Bring ID. The sentence that mattered came at the end. Outgoing instruments on 1449 currently require manager authorization pending review. Not a freeze, a gate. That evening I visited Mama and read to her from the large print Psalms, while the magnolia outside her window leaned toward the glass like it knew secrets bloom on schedules. On the way home I bought a tan legal pad, thick, good paper, and copied my timeline clean. 2019 deposit, 2023, POD appointment, May 2024, DocuSign completion, June 2024, RC15 images, July 2024, audit trail. I put check marks next to everything I could prove and left blanks where the bank would need to speak. On July 8th, after dinner, I laid out the table like a courtroom. Exhibits AC, 1099 INT, RC15 request art response, notary declaration, audit trail, preservation letter, green card stapled, my ID, and a spare pen because pens play tricks under glass. Renee dropped by to wish me steel. She touched the cashier's check image with Carla's name and didn't say anything for a long time. You don't have to win tomorrow, she said. You just have to enter right. I slept like a person with a job in the morning. At 7:10 a.m., I packed the binder, the legal pad, and a bottle of water because dignity gets thirsty. I wore navy because it reads as serious in fluorescent light and flats because I planned to stand my ground without wobbling. At 9:38 a.m., I parked 2 blocks from Peachtree Mutual and sat with the AC on medium, the setting that tells the truth about what air can and cannot do. I read my index card once. I texted Renee, going in. Phone on Do Not Disturb. She replied with a single peach emoji and a prayer hands I could feel. Inside, the lobby hummed like last time, but I did not feel small. Maya looked up, sunflower bright, and nodded toward the glass corridor. Luis Ortiz opened Conference Room B at 9:59, a man who had learned to keep meetings on time. I stepped in and placed the binder on the table, spine toward me, tabs facing the door. The door eased open behind me, and a cobalt sleeve slid into my peripheral vision while a familiar cologne tried to enter the room first. July 9th, 10 a.m. The room had glass walls, 2 chairs per side, and a speakerphone that blinked like it had opinions. Luis Ortiz set ground rules. We'll stick to policy and documents. This is not adjudication, it's a review. Maya sat quietly with a legal pad. Compliance and item research dialed in from a number with no name. Harold took the chair beside me because that's where history put him. Carla sat opposite, cobalt sleeve, eyes steady. Luis began. Account 1449 is a single-owner savings in Mr. Brooks's name. A pod to Ms. Carla M. Addison was added 11/14/2023. The bank does not determine marital ownership, but we can review source of funds, beneficiary changes, and apply risk controls. He nodded at me. Mrs. Brooks? I slid the binder forward, tabs facing him. Exhibit A, 0506, 2019, $20,000 deposit. Front back image shows my endorsement and, for deposit only, $14.49 in Mr. Brooks's hand. Exhibit B, 03-15-2024, bond redemption receipts, serials I-2006, 14TM, I-2007, 219K, I-2008, 77L, proceeds to $14.49. Exhibit C, 04-02, 2024 cashier's check, $3,500 to C.M. Addison, memo relocation, 3C, 1099 INT 2023, shows interest paid on, $14.49 to our home address. I placed the notary declaration and DocuSign audit trail on top. Separately, Metro Peach Credit Union confirms a title lien DocuSign executed from HB Office iPad with no second factor to my phone. Luis turned each sleeve once. A man who knew paper tells the same story twice if you let it. He lifted the speakerphone. Compliance? A careful voice filled the room. Given presented images and audit trail, we'll open a dispute of ownership case on 14-149, case PM DO 240-70931. We'll place a risk manager authorization flag. No wires, cashier's checks, or ACH to third parties without manager review. Estimated review, 30-45 days. We request written statements from Mr. Brooks on source of funds for 2019 and 2024 deposits. Harold leaned forward. Those are business reserves. Carla is a consultant. The POD is just planning. Carla folded her hands. POD doesn't even activate until death, she said correctly. Noted, compliance replied. However, changes to beneficiaries made during a disputed funds period are restricted until case closure. We can suspend the POD modification pending review. Luis looked at Harold. It's a temporary administrative restriction, not a legal determination. Harold's jaw worked. Luis, be reasonable. I am, Luis said, to both of you. I kept my voice level. I'm not asking you to pick a marriage. I'm asking you to honor documents and protect funds that include my inheritance and bonds until the facts settle. Item Research spoke next. We've verified the images Mrs. Brooks provided match our system entries, TXN, PM 2019, 11988, PM 2024, 11807, and cashiers 040224. We'll send certified copies to the case file. Luis summarized. Actions today. Case opened. Manager authorization flag remains. Beneficiary change suspended pending review. Written notices to all parties within 5 business days. Owner statement requested. Mrs. Brooks, you'll receive case updates at your address of record. I slid a 1-page letter across the table. My preservation notice with the green card stapled. For the file, I said. Luis added it without comment. Harold tried the softer tone that used to buy him time. Lorraine, we can do this privately. We are, I said, and tapped the binder. We're in a room with policy. Carla finally looked at me, not past me. If the bank delays, my lease won't. Then your lease will need a different source of funds, I said. Luis closed his folder. Meeting concluded at 10:48 a.m. Notices will follow. Until the review concludes, no outgoing instrument leaves, U1449, without my signature. Carla exhaled through her nose like a runner who'd met a wall and said one word to Harold under her breath that everyone still heard. Delayed. We stepped into the lobby, where money pretends not to have a personality. Maya nodded once, sunflower steady, and went back to her keyboard. Harold adjusted his shirt like he could iron the morning out of it. Carla checked her phone, face unreadable except for the math. Lorraine, Harold said, low, you didn't have to bring her into this. He meant the bank, not Carla. I brought process, I said. You brought pod. The doors hissed open, and Tasha walked in on a gust of July, sleek bun, canvas tote, eyes scanning for her father. She stopped when she saw us grouped like a diagram. Dad, she said, hopeful and warning at the same time. He pasted on the public smile. Pumpkin, just a bank errand. She looked from him to me. I held up my binder half an inch. I did not open it. We had a review, I said. Bank opened a case. Nothing leaves the account until they finish. Tasha's gaze snapped to Harold. Which account? He hesitated the amount of time it takes to plan a smaller lie. Savings. The one with my grandmother's address on the 1099 and Aunt Dolores's money in it? I asked, not to wound, but to anchor. Tasha's face changed. Less betrayal than adjustment, like a joint finding its true socket. You told me you couldn't help with our down payment because a vendor hit the reserve, she said to her father. Is that this? Harold went red in the ears. You don't understand business. I understand receipts, she said, picking up my language like a baton. Will the bank send you something in writing or just her? Both parties, Maya answered from her station without breaking a rule. Case numbers go to the owner and to any authorized recipients. Tasha looked at me, then at Carla, then back to Harold. Dad, I'm asking a yes or no. Is there a pod with her name on money that came from Aunt Dolores and Mom's bonds? Carla's jaw tightened. Pod isn't about you, she said. It is, Tasha said, calm as a ledger. It's about what you thought wouldn't be seen. A notification pinged on Harold's phone loud enough to vibrate the moment. He glanced down, then away. I didn't ask what it said. The thing about evidence is that it doesn't need an audience. It needs a folder. I touched Tasha's elbow. You don't have to pick a parent, I said. You only have to pick the facts. She nodded once, the kind of once that means a woman has just shaved a decade off a bad habit. Text me the case number, she said. Andre and I will plan our closing for September. We walked toward the doors together. Behind us, I heard Maya ask the next customer if they needed small bills or large, which felt right because some days you just need change you can hold. By the time I reached the sidewalk, my phone buzzed with an email from Peachtree Mutual. Notice of account restriction. Case PMDO 2407093D1. Manager authorization required. Beneficiary change suspended. Estimated review 30-45 days. The bank's email from July 9th became a letter 2 days later. Notice of account restriction. Case PMDO 2407093D1. Estimated review 30 to 45 days. Paper is patient, I learned to be too. I taped the letter inside my binder and wrote the window on a sticky note. Aug 8 to 23. In the meantime, life refused to pause. Magnolia Oaks cashed my $1,150 on June 26th. Mama's room faced the magnolia that finally decided to bloom. I brought her lemon cookies every Thursday, and the nurse taught me to tuck the quilt so her feet don't wrestle the night. Small mercies keep you from measuring time only in case numbers. On July 15th, Metro Peach CU sent a preliminary note on the DocuSign. Authentication did not match Ms. Brooks. On July 22nd, they sent the formal letter, signature mismatch confirmed. Lien remains restricted pending final disposition. No negative reporting to Ms. Brooks. I slid it behind tab, DocuSign, and felt something uncoil between my shoulder blades. AVLF put me on the August clinic docket. Melissa met me in a conference room that smelled like copy paper and courage. George's equitable distribution won't be decided here, she said, tapping the banker's letter. But you've done the right thing. Request images, open a case, and keep everything documented. Ask the bank for a segregated disputed funds subaccount if they'll do it. Some institutions will, with dual signatures. We drafted a letter of inquiry to Luis Ortiz. Polite, numbered, free of adjectives. 1. Confirm manager authorization flag. 2. Confirm POD suspension. 3. Ask whether the bank can move the identified $24,000, Aunt D's $20,000 plus bond proceeds $4,000, into a segregated subaccount pending review. 4. Ask for a back-office case contact and target dates. Luis answered on July 29th like a man who had read the manual twice. 1. Flag remains. 2. POD change is restricted. 3. Bank can set up a disputed funds, segregated subaccount with 2-signature disbursement if both parties instruct in writing. 4. Back-office contact attached. Target completion on or before Aug 23. It wasn't victory, it was architecture. I forwarded the email to Harold and Tasha. He wrote back, "Let compliance finish, no side accounts." Tasha replied, "If the money is hers, put it where both of you have to look it in the eye." I didn't write what I was thinking. I filed both responses under correspondence. August arrived like a heat lamp. On AUG 5, Item Research mailed me certified copies of the images I already had by link, front back stamps, teller IDs, the works, now embossed with a silver seal that felt like a hand on my shoulder saying you're not imagining it. On AUG 8, the back office analyst emailed a checklist of what they'd requested from Harold. Documentation showing source for the 2019 $20,000, proof of bond ownership, and any contemporaneous notes about establishing 1449 as a reserve. The kind of list a person answers if the truth is nearby. He didn't answer quickly. On AUG 12, Camille at Metro Peach sent her final forgery confirmed, lien not perfected, file closed as to Ms. Brooks. On AUG 15, Luis sent me a courtesy update. Owner statement pending. Case remains open. Restriction unchanged. I watered the fern, paid the Atlanta Community Bank credit card online, and reminded my sternest self that calendars are part of justice. On AUG 18, I found a thick envelope in the mailbox. Harold's owner statement, a stack of vendor invoices, and a spreadsheet that did not mention Aunt Dolores or bond serials, because math doesn't say your name if you never taught it. I scanned, labeled, filed. On AUG 21, compliance emailed both of us. Proposed administrative accommodation, create disputed funds, segregated subaccount in the amount of $24,000, funded from 1449, disbursement only by dual authorization. Remaining balance stays under manager authorization flag. Please execute mutual direction of funds by OCT 3 or the proposal expires. I printed 2 copies and set them on the kitchen table like place settings. He texted one sentence. I won't sign anything that treats me like a thief. They want both our signatures on a form called Mutual Direction of Funds, and I'm about to decide whether I'll bring him the pen or make him ask the bank for one. I did not bring him the pen. I brought process. On AUG 26, I emailed Luis. Please calendar a signing session for the Mutual Direction of Funds. I'll attend with ID. If Mr. Brooks declines, kindly note refusal. He replied with a date, Sept 10 2 p.m. and a room number. The week before, Tasha and I sat on my couch with iced tea, sweating into coasters, and went line by line through what the segregated subaccount would do. Both signatures to spend, she said, tracking with her finger. No wires, no checks without 2 sets of initials. She exhaled. That's not punishment. That's parenting for money. On Sept 10th, the conference room held Luis, a back office rep on speaker, and 2 identical forms headed Mutual Direction of Funds. Case PM DO 24070931. The form was exactly what Melissa predicted. Authority to move $24,000 from 1449 to disputed funds, segregated, and a checkbox for one limited disbursement. One-time cashier's check to Atlanta Community Bank. Memo. Reimbursement, Magnolia Oaks. Amount, $1,150. I'd asked for that box. If we were going to be adult about it, we could start by reimbursing the thing that kept my mother in her bed. Harold arrived 5 minutes late, eyes on the carpet, jaw tight. Carla didn't come. Luis summarized the option, the case, the policy. This doesn't resolve marital claims, he said, but it protects disputed funds and provides one reimbursing disbursement with both signatures. Harold stared at the form, then at me. You'll use this to starve the business. Dual signature means you'll never be surprised, I said, and I will stop fronting Magnolia out of a savings account with my name on it. He looked at Luis like a man checking a ref's whistle. And if I don't sign? Then the proposal expires AUG 3 and the restriction remains while compliance completes review, Luis said. All outgoing instruments on 1449 stay under manager authorization. The speaker clicked. Back office added, if you do sign, we can complete the move within 5 business days and issue the cashier's check the same day both parties authorize. Tasha's text buzzed my pocket at that second, as if she'd timed it. If the paper's fair, sign the paper. I didn't show him the screen. I watched his face work itself through pride and into arithmetic. He signed. Not flourished. Signed. I signed after him because order matters to me, and Maya notarized our signatures with the same steady hands she uses to count bills. Luis countersigned and said, You'll receive confirmations by email. Expect the cashier's check by Sept 13. On Sept 13, I stood at Peachtree Mutual and accepted an envelope that felt heavier than it weighed. Pay to the order of Atlanta Community Bank, 11500 Takaling. Memo. Reimbursement, Magnolia Oaks. Case, PM due 240709-31. I walked it across town to my bank, deposited it, and printed the receipt on thick paper that noises like a gavel when you set it down. The disputed funds, segregated, showed $2,500 remaining under dual signature. It wasn't back in my purse, but it was out of his pocket. And sometimes that's the right halfway. On Oct 2, compliance emailed both of us. Case PM due 240709-31, review complete. Manager authorization flag remains. Beneficiary change remains suspended pending any court order or settlement. Case archive scheduled for Oct 30. I underlined, suspended, and closed the laptop. 2 hours later, Harold texted from a number labeled shop. Come by tonight. I'll give you the safe code and the keys you asked for. On October 2nd, he texted from the shop. Come by tonight. I'll give you the safe code and the keys you asked for. I went because my grandmother taught me to collect what has my name on it. He handed me a small envelope. No speech. Inside, a sticky note with the safe code, 2 Camry fobs, the Forerunner title still in my name, and the P.O. box key I never used. I closed the storage, he said without looking up. He meant the off-site vault. Later, a plain envelope arrived from Midtown Vault. Unit 52, access terminated, 09/30/2024. I filed it under loose ends. Compliance archived the bank case on October 30th, with a final letter I read twice, and then once more out loud at my kitchen island. Case, PM due 240709-31. Manager authorization continues. Beneficiary change remains suspended absent court order or mutual settlement. Disputed funds. Segregated balance. $12,500 under dual authorization. Not the whole answer, but a guardrail with my fingerprints on it. November came like a long exhale. I spent Sundays at Magnolia Oaks, moving my mother's radio from one windowsill to the next to catch the station that plays Old Soul at 3 p.m. I learned the names of the nurses who braid on night shift and the maintenance man who knows which rooms keep a draft. Every time I pinned a receipt to her corkboard, I thought, this is what a vow looks like when you keep it with paper. On November 12th, AVLF sent a closing note on my clinic file. You have built an excellent record. If you choose to pursue division later, you're ready. I printed it and slid it behind a tab I labeled Future, because sometimes the most radical thing a woman can do is let a decision wait until she can afford the quiet. Tasha and I started walking laps at Grant Park after work, 2 women with matching steps and different knees. She told me she and Andre pushed their closing to December and chose a smaller place with a bigger porch. We'll fill it slow, she said. I gave her a binder, 4 dividers, mortgage, insurance, repairs, receipts, and she laughed, then hugged me over it like it might break. I did something else I owed myself. I toured a 1-bedroom on Cherokee Avenue with a balcony just big enough for a chair, a fern, and a woman who sleeps well. The landlord handed me an application and said the market moves fast. So do pens, I replied, and put down a $1,000 good faith deposit from money that spelled only my name. I signed December 1st as my move-in date and added change of address to my list, where I keep Triumph next to groceries. At church, I started a Saturday workshop called Keep the Receipts. 10 women, a box of pens, a handout that says where your name must live, and my favorite rule, you don't have to scream, you have to sign. We practiced asking for images without apology and saying source of funds like a weather report. Maya came once on her day off, sunflower tucked into a tote. She pretended to be a teller while we practiced being women who don't leave counters empty-handed. On December 3rd, I stood on my new balcony and set the ceramic bluebird on the rail, chipped forward like a scar that chose to tell the truth. Inside my hall closet, a top shelf bore a label written in black marker. Rain. Proof. The disputed funds. Segregated balance sat where we left it, unable to sneak without 2 signatures, which is a kind of peace even when it isn't a poem. The last account I opened this year has one name on it, and it remembers how to say mine.